Today on Investigate TV Plus, a safety standoff.
We're talking about teenagers who, if you want to protect them, why wouldn't you allow them to be protected?
Professional football players can wear an extra layer of head protection, but regulations prevent some amateur athletes from using the same technology.
The average high school lineman can take up to 1,000 hits to the head in a 3-month season.
We uncover the barriers blocking the approval of the caps for high school students.
Then, when every second counts,
I realized then there's somebody in my house. Hey, man, I need help. Call police.
red tape, paperwork, and policies become a potentially life-threatening obstacle.
Then he says, you have to dial 911 yourself because your permit is not valid.
We explain the mistake a security company made and the question homeowners can ask their company to make sure they're protected.
Plus, sowing seeds of hope.
Allow yourself the time to grow. It's possible to turn your life around, and I didn't think it was.
We travel to a farm that's feeding hungry souls while growing produce for families struggling to put food on the table.
And you'll see a lot of squash, a lot of edible pumpkins. You still got peppers and you still got okra growing.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. Protecting players in what some call a dangerous game. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Contact is inevitable in football, but collisions can take a major toll on the body. A doctor we spoke with says she sees collision-related injuries such as concussions in every sport, but she sees them most frequently in football.
When it comes to protective gear in sports, there are going to be injuries. How do we prevent them from being severe? How do we prevent them from being life-threatening or life-altering?
In an attempt to increase protection during impact, in 2010, Guardian Sports created a soft shell helmet called a Guardian Cap.
The theory behind a helmet in football is almost like the same theory of wearing your seatbelt when you're in the car. It's an extra layer of protection to hopefully prevent us from developing severe injury when we do suffer a collision or trauma.
More than a decade later, they are required for most players in NFL practices, and you can even find them in games.
But while professionals get this extra layer of protection, parents question why their kids can't.
Our investigation uncovered in Louisiana the decision about whether or not young players can wear Guardian caps in games is left up to equipment manufacturers.
Reporter Rob Krieger explains why and what can be done to get more pads on high school students.
It starts with each play. Under the lights, on a crisp fall evening, the Willow Lions prepare for one of their biggest rivalries. We out here to hunt. You ain't either the predator or the prey. Taking on the Benjamin Franklin Falcons. For Jake Guichet, the Lions quarterback, this matchup is about more than bragging rights.
I mean, it feels great just to be out here with my guys, really just like having fun, one last ride.
Though Guichet may have a few more rides in him, already receiving offers to play in college.
I'm very excited. I know like my parents are thrilled about him.
The high school senior has a keen awareness. The same risk that's unfolding a potential future in the game could also crumble his prospects. It's why he's willing to wear a Guardian cap, a soft cover that goes over the helmet.
Any little thing can help in this game for sure.
Already in the NFL, Guardian caps are mandatory for nearly every player in practice, and some even wear the cap branded with logos on the field during games. It's a device the NFL's chief medical officer, Dr. Alan Sills, calls an unqualified success, claiming during a media briefing that the caps have driven a significant reduction of concussions in practices, approximately 50% over the last 2 preseasons.
For them to see the value in it and be willing to share that has been huge for us. That's a huge stamp of validation.
Erin Hansen is the CEO of Guardian Sports. In 2010, she and her husband released the Guardian cap, initially in a bid to provide additional protection to the youngest players.
The average high school lineman can take up to 1,000 hits to the head in a 3-month season.
Hansen says Guardian cap isn't a total solution to concussions. However, she believes it can reduce the toll of repetitive hits.
We believe that the beauty of a Guardian cap, everyone wants to talk about that one big hit, that one big concussion. It's not that. It's the accumulation of all of those non-concussive hits over a player's career.
That's exactly why Coach J.J. Smith, head coach of the Lions, was thrilled when his team received a gift of 70 Guardian caps.
Just another layer of security. Seems like it doesn't hurt, just to lessen the impact.
But according to the LHSAA, the organization that regulates high school sports in Louisiana, Willow's extra layer is only okay to wear if the manufacturer of their helmets approves the device.
We told them by rule, meaning by the recommendation from the NFHS, to contact their vendor. And if the vendor says what? No, we're not going to take responsibility or liability for them. You're on your own to use them.
In a phone call with Eddie Bonine, the executive director of the LHSAA, he explains his organization is simply following the National Federation of State High School Associations, or NFHS's guidelines. However, a letter the NFHS Rules Review Committee chair sent to the makers of Guardian caps tells a different story. The letter reads, "The permissive use of the Guardian cap product is not a violation of NFHS football rules."
The NFHS, the National Federation of High School Sports, takes a neutral stance. They take a neutral stance and permit it for games and practices. So does Pop Warner. So does the NCAA.
So use them. We're just saying check with the vendor because of certification, because we don't pay for recertification for helmets. That's expensive cost.
But Rydell, the manufacturer of Willow's Speedflex helmets, won't approve Guardian caps. Bonine says because of that, if Willow uses the caps, it would prevent them from recertifying their helmets, which has to happen every 2 years. That would mean the school would have to purchase all new helmets every other year. Guardian Sports says any claims their product could impede recertification are false, offering documentation it says proves helmet makers cannot decertify a helmet nor void the helmet's warranty.
When you prioritize corporate interests over player safety, it's a bad place to be.
Hansen thinks the LHSAA is punting a decision on Guardian caps to helmet makers, despite evidence the devices won't impede helmet safety.
We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in testing. We've proved that we don't cause helmets to fail the certification for which they, the standard for which they were certified. We've done everything we can do on our end, but ultimately the governing bodies, because of liability interests, defer to those manufacturers.
She points to the NFL, where players wear the caps on the field this season, but Bonine argues comparing these players to children isn't the same.
You're not comparing apples to apples to apples. Number one, professional football is a professional sport, and those athletes are being paid millions of dollars, and the NFL owners are protecting their investment in their player personnel, number one.
The high school kids still have futures, and that's an investment worth protecting. Would you agree with that?
I completely agree, dude, but I'm not going to sit here in this chair and decide on that unilaterally.
Bonine says in order to make any changes to state rules, a high school principal would need to request the change, and only then could it be considered during the organization's annual commission in January.
They're deferring and they're allowing corporate interests to control the narrative, and I don't think that should be their number one priority.
Bonine says despite the LHSAA's guidelines, players can still choose to wear the caps, but he claims in the Lions case, it means their helmets will no longer meet the safety standards for certification.
Does that make sense to you that the piece of fabric would invalidate the hard shell helmet's certification?
I have no opinion on that.
Coach Smith hopes policymakers will embrace devices like Guardian caps, noting the strides the sport has made in protective equipment over the last century.
So the game continues to evolve, and now some of the different options that they have, definitely are better than what we had when we came up.
Meanwhile, Guichet thinks blocking the extra padding simply doesn't make sense, and anything that might keep him passing to his friends on the field is worth the effort.
I can't really see any way that it could really hurt the players in any way. So it's great to look out and see everybody wearing them and knowing that they have that extra protection.
Before the start of the 2024 season, The Athletic polled more than 100 NFL players on a variety of topics. NFL senior writer Larry Holder explains why Guardian caps got a starting spot in the discussion.
The one thing that I took away from the survey is they're not denying the safety element. They know it's safer.
He believes the guidelines for Louisiana high schools go against what the NFL is trying to tout, that players can wear the caps in games to feel as safe as possible.
These are grown men who can make their own decisions and are making millions and millions of dollars. We're talking about teenagers who, if you want to protect them, why wouldn't you allow them to be protected?
We reached out to Rydell, the company that makes the helmets for the Willow School, twice for comment, but did not hear back. In September of 2024, a parent of a Willow football player reached out to Rydell requesting a letter of compliance to allow the team to wear the caps over the helmets. Rydell responded saying, quote, "As of now, the helmet has only been approved the direct way we make them. We as a company can only okay the way it comes out of here."
Homeowners with security systems expect their coverage to kick in when peace is shattered by a piercing alarm.
We have a serious problem because what I pay you for, you didn't come to my aid.
But a North Carolina homeowner says it became more of a roadblock than a lifeline. Up next, we investigate how a permit dispute could put a property at risk and what every homeowner needs to know to help stay safe.
Then later, creating a living legacy with locomotives.
My daughter says this is what keeps me going. All aboard.
How a tour through a tiny town connects generations. A security system can bring a homeowner peace of mind.
But imagine your alarm goes off because of an intruder, yet you can't get the help you need because of miscommunication with the security company.
The nightmare turned into reality for a Charlotte, North Carolina man, and reporter Mary King has his warning to help prevent it from happening to you.
Everyone's in the house asleep. The alarm goes off, saying basement door open.
George Allen says it was just after 1 a.m. on Tuesday, April 16th.
I get up, put on my pants, grab my weapon, slip on my shoes. By that time, Brink's Home Security is calling me.
Allen says he then made his way out the front door.
Heart racing, hoping that it's the wind just blown the door open.
And the agent on the phone asked him if he wanted police to respond.
And I'm telling him, don't call yet, let me check to make sure, because I left the door open.
But Allen says when he got to the door, it was locked.
I realized then there's somebody in my house. Hey, man, I need help. Call police. And then he says, what's your password? You called me. I couldn't think of my password. And so I finally think of it. I give it to him. And then he says, you have to dial 911 yourself because your permit is not valid.
Allen is referring to an alarm system permit. Charlotte and Mecklenburg County require residents to have one in an effort to cut down on false calls for police. In that moment, Allen says he didn't question the agent.
I'm perplexed, and so I step back, I hang up from him, and I dial 911.
While police were on the way, Allen says a woman stepped out of his basement with some of his things in her hands.
And immediately I say, get on the ground, get on the ground. She gets on the ground, and I make her dump everything out of her purse. I make her put everything down.
Allen says his wife stayed on the phone with dispatchers until police arrived to help. Only later could they start to process what happened. Allen says after several calls, a Brinks Home supervisor told him his alarm permit was not valid. But when Allen checked with Charlotte Alarm Management, he says he confirmed his permit was valid.
We have a serious problem because what I pay you for, you didn't come to my aid.
3 weeks after the ordeal, Brinks Home Security credited Mr. Allen 6 months of free monitoring, something he'd not agreed to because he felt more should be done. When we reached out, a Brinks Home spokesperson shared they deeply regretted the incident and were working with Mr. Allen, adding in part, quote, the Brinks Home customer service and technical teams have since taken action to address the extremely rare systems issue that delayed our ability to dispatch law enforcement to Mr. Allen's home. The issue is now fully resolved and will not impact Mr. Allen's service in the future, end quote. After our questions, Brinks Home also agreed to refund the money Allen had paid for monitoring the last 4 years and give him free monitoring for the next year, too. Allen says he's grateful for the apology, but also hopes his story encourages all homeowners to check their alarm permit policies and local ordinances.
I want the people of Mecklenburg County to know that you have a responsibility to make sure all of your ducks are in order. You have a responsibility, your alarm system has a responsibility.
Well, first of all, that woman picked the wrong house, obviously, and thankfully. But, you know, it's good advice for any homeowners who have alarms and things like that in states that require something like that.
There's sometimes little extra things you need to pay attention to keep yourself safe.
No doubt about that, yeah.
We reached out to 3 major home security providers to dig deeper on your permit responsibility. Well, when it comes to your home and whether or not you need a permit, we found it varies by city and county. Some require alarm permits and some do not. Check with your security company to see if they renew your permit for you.
Still ahead, giving people second chances while feeding food-insecure families.
I always say the soil is good for the soul.
We take an in-depth look at how some unused church land can help create a space for growth. People in need of a fresh start are finding their way on a farm in Nashville, Tennessee.
They're not only enriching their lives, but they're helping grow and harvest produce to fight food insecurity, an issue that impacts about 1 in 7 households in the U.S.
Reporter Tracy Cornett explains how the idea for these farms sprouted and capitalized on unused land owned by churches.
As part of the Bible Belt, Tennessee is known for its legacy of faith and legendary megachurches, some of which sit on acres of unused land. Joey Langford saw these empty fields as opportunities.
And you'll see a lot of squash, a lot of edible pumpkins. You still got peppers and you still got okra growing.
To help feed the hungry in his own backyard.
Plot planning, the timing, crop rotations for soil health.
The husband and father learned these skills as a missionary in Cape Town, South Africa, where he and his family spent 5 years learning how to train people to grow their own food.
I always say the soil is good for the soul.
When they returned to Tennessee, he launched the nonprofit Cultivate, and his mission field expanded to help feed hungry souls at the same time.
But then also create employment for people that were trying to get back on their feet after coming out of prison or coming through an addiction.
Drugs and alcohol are definitely a big part of my story.
21-year-old Nate tried for years to get sober.
My drug of choice was cocaine. Before here in the interview process, I told him I hadn't been able to hold a job. You know, I'm undisciplined. I've been in and out of sobriety. This place has really given me a community. It wouldn't be possible without Mr. Joey taking a chance on me.
The Brentwood location hit a major milestone in Cultivate's goal to fight food insecurity.
It's a first-year farm.
Gosh,
so
1 year? This has grown this fast?
And we just hit 100,000 pounds of food harvested like last week.
Half of what's grown on Cultivate farms is given away.
Sure.
The other half is sold to the public to pay wages. But perhaps the biggest haul of this now $1.7 million nonprofit is its harvest of hope.
Does digging in the dirt, in the physical dirt, what does it do for you?
I remember the first few months I was here, it really made me like draw some connections in my mind. Like these plants are growing and they take time to grow. One of the signs they have at Cultivate in the break room is like allow yourself time to grow. It's possible to turn your life around, and I didn't think it was.
Cultivate has 3 chemical-free farming sites around Nashville they say helped produce more than 170,000 meals in just 1 year.
Up next, a miniature world sets dreams in motion.
You guys go all the way up to the red car?
We hop aboard a tiny Alaskan train where passion isn't measured by size, but by the smiles it creates.
Railroads help connect the country in more ways than one.
But instead of moving products or passengers to a new place, there's a train outside Anchorage, Alaska with a mission to help families make memories.
Reporter Dave Allgood explains how a grandfather laid down tracks that would carry joy for decades.
The Alaska Central Railroad is rolling down the tracks in Wasilla.
Hi!
Over bridges and through tunnels. Oh, and look, a KOA campground, a relaxing ride in the country.
The kids love it.
And there are lots of smiles when the train stops for photo ops.
I need a big, big smile.
And what you may or may not have noticed is that these are little trains.
Yep, it weighs about 1,000 pounds.
Well, don't tell that to them because these strong steel horses can haul.
I can do 10 people really good.
And they even have one that can pull more people, big and small.
You guys go all the way up to the red car?
So as more passengers prepare to board or straddle for the next journey, I'll let Dennis explain what's going on here.
It's a 1/8 scale railroad on about 3.5 miles of track on 18 acres in the woods in Wasilla.
You see, all this to scale towns and houses and miles of track was the brainchild or train child of this man, Jack Klingbeil.
My wife and I founded this back in 1969, so our children could have something to do and stay out of trouble.
He wasn't just building rails, he was pouring the foundation for family. His daughter, Cherish, checks in passengers.
Hi! Would you like a ride today? Yes, there's 5 of us.
And grandson, Briar, is on board with helping Grandpa ride the rails and carrying the occasional goose. It's all
it's a family affair still.
But not just for Jack, but for the people who keep coming back.
We decided to come check it out on Mother's Day about 2 years ago.
And you're back?
Yeah.
The outdoors, the relaxing rocking of the rails, moments to let your mind just soak in being alive.
The thing about this little train is that it's a little train and it makes you feel like a little kid again. And I got to admit, I got a little giddy when we first took off, and it's you just can't help but smile when you're out here. It's kind of cool.
So riding and waving with Jack was a big treat on this small train because it's his powerful passion that keeps this train on the tracks and the people coming back.
My daughter says this is what keeps me going. All aboard.
And that's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, taking steps to ensure a climate-resilient food supply.
The reality is the heat and the unpredictable weather seem to be getting worse on a yearly basis.
We take an in-depth look at work to create an adapted apple and how it could serve as a model for other crops across the country.